Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In episode 232, we recap the Detroit Lions' 44-22 win over the Washington Commanders. We're going to talk about how things finally looked right on offense, digest the defense, and hit on special teams, and maybe, just maybe, we'll even mention Jack Fox. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey everyone, this is Lomas Brown, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He was also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He is the Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, happy Victory Monday.
Yes, no doubt about that. It was a long week getting to this one. So good job, Lions.
That it was. And joining both of us is a Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. That is James Cook, the Senior Sports Writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. James, good to have you here, and thank you for the flexibility. I was at the game. Took me a little bit of time to get back, and I appreciate that, working that into your crazy schedule right now with all the playoffs going on.
No problem, man. It's good to be here. Good to be 1-0 this week, and hopefully they make it 2 weeks in a row next week.
We sure would like that. You know what else you might like to know is that our show is brought to you by our friends at Roaster Jack Coffee Company in Traverse City. They've been roasting premium beans since 1999. Can fuel the morning cup or the whole crew. You order fresh at roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. You get 20% off. Roaster Jack, brew great coffee and go Lions. And guys, I got to tell you something. Just a few days ago, my wife was saying, we're out of coffee. We need to get some more. And I said, do you want Roaster Jack coffee? And my wife's not going to drink bad coffee, you guys. She likes good coffee. And she's not going to buy Roaster Jack coffee just to support the show. But she goes, oh, yeah, I like that coffee. I want more Roaster Jack coffee. So my wife's endorsing it too, folks. And so I'm going to say it out to you. Give it a try. You use the code LIONS, you get 20% off. And if you like it, you'll order a second bag. All right, well, the game had a lot to like. So let's just start with our first overall reaction. Coach, in a sentence or two, overall reaction to the game.
Totally dominating a team that you should dominate on the road. And that's a great sign of a great team. And again, not losing 2 in a row for 1,109 days, something like that.
All right, James, how about you?
I'll take a line from Dan Campbell in the locker room after the game where he said, that is a lot more like us. And I think this is a lot more like what people were expecting this season.
My thoughts are very similar to that. It's that's the Detroit Lions team I think most fans have grown to love, and it's good to see them again. Okay, turning points, pivotal moments. There are multiple moments in this game that were pivotal. I want to start with the first one, which happened before the game even started. And that's like the pregame atmosphere, you guys. The Lions fans were out in force in this one. Now, there were a number of empty seats in the stadium. And, with Jane Daniels going down, that affected the Commanders, a little bit and their losing streak. But the ones that were filled, man, there were so many Lions fans there. I want to say maybe 50-50. Like, it was, honestly, there were times where I saw more Lions fans than Washington Commanders fans. And either way, it was a crazy good reputation or representation of the fans out there, James.
Yeah, and it sounded like it on TV too. I mean, you could pretty clearly hear the Jared Goff chants, the Let's Go Lions chants, all of those. It was plain as day. One time when they came back from commercial, I think it was, the Jared Goff chant was that you couldn't not hear it.
You heard that walking around the stadium, and I met so many Lions fans. I met one couple, the row behind me from Syracuse, and they were fun to talk to. And a guy, the row behind them, he got our whole section singing Forward Down the Field after the Gibbs touchdown. And I'm like, wait, are we in Maryland or Michigan right now? Like, it was pretty awesome, Coach. And that's just the reason I put that as a pivotal moment is that takes away the home field advantage for the team.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it too. When you come out, I was at a college game this weekend, and there was maybe 3,000, 4,000 fans in the stand, a MAC game, and even the dads that I was with, from Bowling Green, and the players, like, where are the guys? And that's one of the biggest things. And you come out of that tunnel for the Detroit Lions, and you see Honolulu blue all over the place. You're like, we better ball out, boys, because these people are paying a lot of money to follow us around the country. So it's just good stuff. And that, again, comes to the snap count. You guys know that, how loud it is in Detroit. So just kudos and just great by the fans that nonstop support the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, and Coach already brought this up, James, but you wanted to add to it about the team's ability to bounce back from a loss the week previously.
Yeah, the Lions are the only team in the NFL now who have not lost back-to-back regular season games in the NFL since October of 2022.
Knock on
So,
wood.
so over 3 years.
Yeah, and that game was like just a couple days after Thanksgiving. Then when they won that game, because that was against the Packers. I dressed up as Dan Campbell for Halloween that year. Hutchinson had an interception on Aaron Rodgers, as did some other guy named Kirby Joseph, and that was Rodgers' last game in Detroit. Yeah, incredible things there. Another pivotal moment, another turning point, you guys, happened before kickoff. And I know we're going to talk about kickoff because Coach is right. You're right, James. We talked about this before we started. What happens once the ball's kicked off? But before the ball was even kicked off, a pivotal thing happened early in the week, James, and people didn't know about it. I didn't pick up on it. Coach, you may have picked up on this and read between the lines, but we talked. They said they're going to maybe shuffle the offensive line. That's not what they shuffled. They shuffled play calling, James, and so. Give me some insights. Give me some thoughts on that.
Yeah, early in the first quarter on that first drive, I was seeing the plays and I was like, this just doesn't seem like the way John Morton calls a game. The way they were running the ball, they were actually effective on screens, whereas the last couple of games, the screens have just been going nowhere. The quick hits, and then I noticed Campbell on the sidelines doing all the talking into the microphone and wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Which is I was like, I've never seen him wear glasses on the sideline before, and that's got to be so that he can read the play call sheet. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, yeah, Dan Campbell is calling these plays. One, it just seems like a whole new refreshing offense, and two, the glasses and the way Campbell was on the thing. And then later in the game, they showed Morton up in the box, and he was basically doing next to nothing. I mean, he was watching obviously on an iPad, but he wasn't talking to anybody. So it was pretty obvious what had happened after a while.
Yeah, I caught some of that on social media, and then I started scouring the sidelines, and sure enough, the board coach is usually on his hip, and it's in his hands the entire time, and so that's a big change. Coach, the Lions started the season 5-3. They had a bye week in that time, and they expected to right a few things. Coach, you talked about numbers being misleading. The offense statistically looked pretty good, but there were some things that we saw that we didn't like. And during the bye week, they tried to make some changes, but whatever it was, it wasn't successful against the Vikings. You come out against a team that probably has a somewhat similar skill set as far as not being great, but not being bad, and injuries affecting the team. And the Lions made the change before the game. What do you think goes into a decision like this?
Well, that's tough. The disconnect, I think, is the big one. Listening to the guys, I watch all those things all during the week. I'm sure a lot of people
Yep.
do. Listen to the St. Brown. Oh, we're just not connected. And Glasgow, oh, we're just not. We got to Decker. Hey, we got to figure some things out. And I think the thing you got to remember, the Lions the last 3 years. But when did Ben Johnson take over as the OC? I think it was halfway through that year after Lynn, right? I think he somewhere in that place he kind of fell in, and Campbell started letting him make the calls,
Yep.
right? So you have all those years in a row of the same guy speaking the same terminology as Dan Campbell, and then you bring a new guy in, and I don't know, and I mean, again, I'm not there. The big thing about Morton, then I watched his press conference, and I'm like, man, he is really defensive in his press conference. Morton was, because I kind of try to watch the coordinator's press conference every week just to see what they're, talk about. Plus, it's great. Plus, Shep, you watch Shep's press conference and you go out and mow the lawn, and we got 10 inches of snow on the ground right now. So, anyways, so I mean, those are things that I started picking up on, going, man, something's not right here. And so I think, and then Dan Campbell in his press conference last week said, yeah, it's a collective thing. We all put, and it is a collective thing. It's not one, it's wearing the head coaching thing. I was a head coach for 13 years. It wasn't my team, it was our team. And that's Dan Campbell's concept. So, not exactly sure what happened, but Johnny Morton's still around and he's still helping out, and God bless him, because that means he cares about us winning, and Dan Campbell, and who knows where it's going to go from here. But anyways, I thought that was it was interesting. And I too, I think I text you guys. I'm like, guys, wearing glasses, and then I saw the markers, and I'm like, he's got markers too. This he's crossing out some plays and writing some things down. So, and then I don't know if you guys saw his wife's tweet with the lion with the glasses on. Oh, Molly, that's awesome. But anyways,
That was great. And there's so much to take from this because those were like the first 3 or 4 questions that Campbell and Goff both got after the game.
Yeah.
And Dan said it's very different than 2021 when Anthony Lynn and him, he took over the play calling duties for Lynn. And it is different for a variety of reasons. One, as Jared Goff pointed out, they were an 0-8 team then. They were a 5-3 team this time. You've got playoff expectations. But also, I think, let's look at Morton for a minute, right? Campbell said he's part of the process. He values the information. You can be really, really good at one element of a job and might not be so great at the other aspect of it. And you can be super smart, but maybe don't have that cadence to build that rhythm in or whatever. And so that might be the adjustment that was needed. And James, coach says this, and maybe from fans, we look at this as, well, maybe that loss is what they needed. Well, the loss isn't what you needed to make you play harder, because I don't think that's the issue. But here's the thing. If you're just looking at the stats and the numbers, hey, we have a winning record. We're top 5 in offense. We're doing okay. We had to iron some things out. But if you don't fully feel like, hey, or, make a big enough change, late December, early January, you're going to feel it. And maybe, just maybe, that game against the Vikings after a bye week was like, hey, we had time to fix it. It's not fixed. Maybe that was the tipping point, James.
I think so. Everybody was disappointed in that game, obviously. And I think it made them kind of look at some things, Campbell and the other coaches and everybody just kind of like, okay, well, what isn't working here? How can we fix this? And obviously their solution was to have Dan Campbell call the plays. Morton is still going to be involved. I mean, he hasn't been let go. He was there. He was in the box and everything. And the talk that they've had about him, is that he's a very great at designing plays, just maybe not at communicating them as well to his team or getting them to execute them as well, and not maybe making adjustments during the games. There was a lot of criticism of him that too, not adjusting to what the defense was doing very much. So I think he can still be somebody who's going to be around the rest of the season and helping and participating and adding something to the offense. But you're going to see pretty much now. I think that they'll stay with this with Dan Campbell calling the plays. I don't see any reason why they would go back. We saw the results on the field on Sunday. Everything with that offense looked pretty darn good.
That it did. And I know we're going to get to the game here, folks, because we are recapping the game, even though we haven't really recapped it yet. But Coach, I really need some insights from you on this one here, okay? As a head coach, did you always call plays? Did you never call plays? Was it a back and forth? I want to know about, tell me about that first off.
Well, I was, I on the high school level, college, high school level is different, basically you got to do, I was a defense coordinator to start. I never switched over to the offensive side. When I became head coach, I stayed on the defense side and took care of special teams. So I took two thirds. I took 2/3, and then I had an offense coordinator that made the calls. But as the head coach, you still made some decisions. You still came in and said, that's not what I want right now, because the communication's on there. And I think Dan has been doing that for years. And that's the hardest part to come in. We did it in a playoff game to go into overtime with one of the best comebacks. And I changed the call during the timeout and I put a different package on and left my best player on the sidelines. And everybody's like, what are you doing? Well, we scored and we went to the state finals that year. So, when you have a feel, and that's what Dan's saying, when you have a feel of something like that, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to go back to the Washington game last year because we're talking about this, and how upset was Dan Campbell in some of those calls during the Washington game, but he trusted in. Okay, and so that may have played on this decision with Morton, where I let JMO throw a double pass down 10. And again, I'm not blaming, I'm just saying,
Sure.
But those are things as a head coach. And the other part, Dan Campbell, and I'm talking from the head coach's part, my team's getting hammered in the paper right now. Everybody's getting, if we're going to lose a football game, it's going to be because of what I call and not what my OC calls. And come at me because it's my team. I love Dan Campbell for that.
Well, and you brought up an interesting thing because one of the reporters asked him, did you think about calling plays before the season started? And he said he thought about it. But here's another interesting thing, Coach, is he said if he does go that route, he's like, I knew if I went that route, that takes more time and more energy, which means you can't give that resource to something else. So that's maybe one area of concern is that he's going to have to delegate another responsibility if he's going to pick up this one because there's so many hours in the day. What might something that look like to you, Coach?
Well, that's going to be tough. I mean, that's the thing is because you have to, especially as a head coach, you have, you got to worry about the offense, you got to worry about the defense, you got to worry about special teams, you got to worry about the bus. He's got people doing all those things. But, from my standpoint, who's doing an itinerary? How are we going to get on the field? Are we lined up right? I mean, it's the professional football level, but those are all things that when you watch this team, you watch them click. And when they're clicking coming out of the locker room, when they're clicking in pregame. So it's tough. Dan's he's got to do his press conference. How many times do you guys hear the offensive coordinator talk a week?
Once, I think, right?
Thank you. How many times do you hear Dan Campbell talk a week? 3, 4. Now, are you going to add? He has to talk during the OC time now too. You guys follow? So that limited time, things, and him going over to the defense side of the ball during bigs, one-on-ones, when they're going, mano, where maybe he had walked over there and said, Shep, I don't like this, or Shep, I don't, now he's got it. He's going to have to juggle all that stuff. I think he's got a great staff, and with John, and again, we don't, like you said, James, we don't know if he's going to take over the full responsibility, but the key with that is Johnny Morton is still there. Johnny Morton is still the offense coordinator. He's still got the title. So Dan's probably can be able to, pick and choose his battles and get the stuff done. The dude is very intelligent, as people are starting to find out.
Yeah, for sure. And the Lions have a press conference later today, so we'll find out more about that as the week goes on. But James, what other thoughts would you have on this?
Well, there's a lot of teams in the NFL right now that have offensive coordinators who don't call the plays.
Yes.
Matt LaFleur calls the plays in Green Bay. Sean McVay calls the plays in Los Angeles. There's a couple other ones where the head coach calls the plays. Essentially, Andy Reid, I think, in Kansas City calls the plays for the most part too. So you've got a lot of guys who are offensive coordinators who are just doing the behind the scenes stuff and the practice stuff, and on game day are not calling the plays. So it's not that uncommon of a thing. And then maybe now Dan will just delegate Applebee's commercials to Kelvin Shepherd.
Yeah. Or Scotty Montgomery. Scotty might be okay at that too.
I like that delegation. That's a good one. All right. Well, let's talk about pivotal moments during the game, James. And I think we kind of want to start right at the beginning, right?
Yeah. I mean, having him take the reins, and then that first drive was just, getting the first defensive stop, I think, was big. Getting that 3 and out on the first drive that Washington had, and then just go the other way, and they just marched right down the field with chunk plays to get that score and really take control of the game.
Yeah. I mean, starting on defense and stopping them to a 3 and out, then marching down and getting a touchdown right away. especially being a road game, you want to, like one of you guys said, it's a game they were supposed to win. You need to go in and handle it that way, and you need to just take control of the game. That's exactly what they did, Coach.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And off that first drive, and that's one of the things I put down. What's the turning point? The first drive. Skipper reports eligible. Okay. Then they go to 12P personnel. 2 run plays. They get the first down. Then they run that boot pass to Saint and
Yeah.
gets a big run. Then they run another one. Then they run a short pass to Gibbs.
Mhm.
And right now, because Washington's down in numbers, but Washington still has a very good defensive line that they lost a player or two during the game because of never mind. And anyways, and so that was that, like both guys just said. And I guarantee all three of us will agree when we saw that, we're like, yeah, look at that. Boom, where are they going? Oh my God, look who's on the field now. Where are they? Oh my God, scared. And then bang, they scored. And that was just beautiful. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. 10 plays, 78 yards, over 5 minutes off the clock. I mean, I think that had to be kind of demoralizing for the Commanders, who, if they came into this game thinking we got a chance to win this one, getting stopped 3 and out, and then having the Lions just impose their will upon them in the first drive, I think really set a tone for the game.
And Gibbs
Monty
going
was in on
across
that
the
first-
middle too.
Yes. Well, yeah. Monty was in on that first drive also, right?
They had both of them,
Stuff.
and they were rotating them back and forth,
That's
which was
what
great.
Again, that was what we've done with Monty and Gibbs, and not just said, "Oh, we're going to run him for." Oh, Monty's in this series, but we're going to run the ball. He gets 3 runs for 4 yards, and now we punt. And I think that the skipper. I mean, you could just see the whole dynamics about just we're in a flow right now. Let's go. So
Yeah.
Now,
And
Coach,
they were also,
you wanted to
they were
go ahead, James.
No, they were kind of just pulling out some of the greatest hits, from the last few years. They had Skipper, like you said, as the sixth linebacker or the sixth lineman. They had that one, the deep throw to St. Brown that I think wasn't completed, but they took a deep shot on that first drive to St. Brown, and they had Skip in there giving Decker help, and then they also had Wright come across the motion on there on a wham block to make sure that Decker wasn't going to get beat on that play, and that the backside was sealed and giving Goff time to get that throw off. We didn't see those things nearly as much this season, earlier this season, and they were things that were really, really worked a lot for the Lions in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and on that, after that first drive, though, once they got that touchdown, the Lions did, Coach. Special teams. I mean, that's becoming a bigger issue.
Well, and just like last week, you guys, we had talked about this. Just like last week, we scored the first tutty, right? And what do? We give up a 61-yard return to the Vikings, and now it's 7-7, right? Because they score. And this week we give up as a 49-yard. I broke it down. We'll talk about kicking later because there was some adjustments, what I just love. But anyways, Trevor gets triple teamed. Stewart and Trevor cross. Trevor gets triple team. He's not on the edge or it looks like he's supposed to be on the hash mark. The kick only goes to the 2-yard line, which with the timing and how fast these guys are, was the kick supposed to be at the 1? Was the kick supposed to be outside? And we'll talk about that when I talk about his other kicks so that you guys understand. But the kick is right on the hash mark, right near the hash mark on the 2 line. And so can we not cover on that? But what happens, because that's a negative play, and me and I was with Reese Hanson, him and I both looked at each other. Oh my God, same as last week, But for some reason it didn't feel right, and then we stop them. We make them kick 3. The defense stepped up. Hutch knocked that screenplay down, and then Terry and Arnold, that coverage, man on man, inside phase. But shoulder on his shoulder, head turned back, just great coverage, and we made them kick a field goal. And if you're down 7-3 to the Lions, you're in trouble because you better not be kicking field goals. And that's exactly what happened from there. And then of course we know what the rest is: score, 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 score. So, but anyways, those are 2 of the biggest plays that series that I really enjoyed and I knew we were going to be okay.
Awesome. Yeah, and I liked what the Lions did right before halftime, because Washington comes down, gets a touchdown, it's 22-10, and then the Lions they're inside the red zone. There's like seconds to go, and it's 4th and like 8 or something, and they were like inside the 10, and numbers are off slightly, but the Lions went for the field goal. And I liked it because it put you up by 15 instead of 12, and you knew you were getting the ball in the second half. And then they got the ball to start the second half. They went down, got a touchdown. It went from 22 to 10 to 32 to 10 before Washington even got the ball back, James. So I love the stacking of the points right there, and you're taking it because you know you want to bury the team versus risk getting 0 if that one play doesn't work.
Yeah, and they converted on 2 4th downs on that drive too to get that field goal. And to take a lot of time off the clock, make sure that they really didn't get the ball back with much time to work with to be able to come back and get something because you knew you had the ball coming out of halftime as well. And then you could maybe tack on another one and make this game really really a blowout. So they kind of, I think getting those 4th downs really took enough time off the clock that Washington, the time they did have, they just ended up kneeling and walking into halftime.
All right. Well, hey, as we keep going, folks, we want to remind you to find us on social media. Tell your friends about this show. You can find us on all major streaming platforms. The video version is on YouTube as well. So follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and whatnot. And again, tell your friends about the show. We would like that. And we want to talk about what we liked about the Detroit Lions play. So let's start with the offensive line coach. There was craziness. It was like fluid. It was like a familiarity we had seen that we hadn't seen in a while. And the run game was working. So talk to me about the offensive line, coach.
Well, again, yeah, it looked like I mentioned earlier, the quick throws by Goff helped out. I mean, that was a big thing, for the sack concept. But the way they attacked it, they put those guys in. Cody stepped in and did exactly what he's supposed to do, and didn't miss a friggin' beat. And even Colin came in when Glasgow went down, didn't miss a beat. And I think, again, we talked earlier about the personnel, about X or Skip, about the 12 personnel. We're going to run downhill. This is what we do. And we attack the strength of their defense is their defensive line and that linebacking core. And we attacked it. And we just, and I guess we kept them off balance again. The short passes, the deep ball. James already talked about the deep ball to Saint. Pull some guys out of the box, and here we come. So yeah, I thought the communication concept. I thought that they did a great job on doubles, and then doubles into backers. Just everybody seemed to block, and it looked like they turned it up a little bit and said. We are a little upset about what happened last week, and we're not going to allow it this week. And I'm going to tell you, the best block I saw the whole game, guys, and it wasn't even a block, but it was Lou, whatever his name is, running away from Big Sewell.
Yeah.
He was literally running away from him because he's going, Sewell's going to take me out for the cheap shot I put on Goff last year. And that was probably my favorite block about just to watch him run away. And I can just hear him going, run away, run away.
I think I saw somebody on social media call it a business decision by him to not take that on. But the offensive line play, I mean, the Lions didn't shuffle it, but guys got some reps in, and those reps became valuable because, Glasgow came out, Sewell came out. And so, Cologne going in there, getting those reps and doing that drive was huge. They didn't miss a beat. And I don't have the stats I do have is the Lions had 226 yards on the ground, James, for 6.8 a carry. And I know they had like a 43-yard run in there, but what we saw a lot more runs for 5 yards plus in this game to get to that 6.8 yard a carry. It wasn't an 83 or a 75-yard run that inflated the stats. And that, I think, impressed me the most. Along with, as Coach said, with Jared Goff doing the quicker passing. But when you can pound the ground like that, that sets those play action passes up so much more.
Yeah. The run game as a whole just seemed much more complete. The linemen seemed much more comfortable as well. I mean, part of it is that you're not getting blitzed from everywhere by Brian Flores, and you're facing a team that's missing its top 4 defensive ends and gets one of its best defensive tackles kicked out in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So that has, I mean, it was a little lighter lifting, but I think that the scheme part played a big factor into that as well. Everybody looked comfortable. I remember one play that Gibbs had where, I mean, the hole was 10 feet wide open.
Yeah.
I mean, Gibbs couldn't help but gain 10 yards on that. I mean, it was just crazy. They scored on all 8 possessions until they ran the clock out at the game. At the end of the game, they had 5 touchdowns and 3 field goals. Never, Jeff Fox never saw the field.
We've mentioned
So,
Jack Fox, folks. We might not say his name again, but he was
yeah,
mentioned there.
yeah, he's still got a game check
Yeah,
for warming up.
for sure.
It was it was the second most yards in the NFL this season, 546 of any team in any game this season. And it was also interesting at the end of the game when they put the backups in what the offensive line was, because it was Skipper at left tackle.
Yeah.
They moved Cologne to left guard, Nice at center, then Awashika at right tackle, and Ratledge stayed at his normal position at right guard. So
Wow.
it was interesting how they shuffled it up in garbage time there in the fourth quarter.
Love it. I love it.
Hey, quick question. Did you guys, how many times you seen Decker 40 yards downfield looking for a block in the last couple, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Not, and I'm not, now,
Oh,
you guys remember the play? That's the one where Sewell came out and Decker was down. He was 30 yards, 35 yards downfield shopping for work. And I just, that's the thing. He was, we used to coach that, get into the frame, get into the frame. This is a guy with a bad shoulder, a bad knee. He's got a lot of games under his belt. Yeah, he had it. He was going down there and he was going to make sure he cut somebody off so Gibbs could get in the end zone. So just cool, just unbelievable on the offensive line.
yeah.
That
And
is
those
one
guys,
thing.
go ahead, James.
Yeah, that is one thing I think that the earlier this season that you noticed is the line not getting to the second level nearly as much.
Yeah.
Um, in those struggles that they had against some of those teams, and some of that's the schemes that they were facing and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, in this game, the linemen were able to get to the second level a lot better, and that creates those cutback lanes and those blocks that just break long runs.
Yeah. And it gave Jared Goff more time to work, more time to throw. He's the one that got the game ball from Dan Campbell. He only gave up one game ball, gave it to Jared Goff. We already highlighted this in the last week or two, is that Jared Goff is having a very good season. He currently has the highest rating of his career, and he had a pretty good one last year. And so, certain things get overlooked because of different elements of his game, but the man is playing very, very good, and arguably at some of the smartest level he has ever played at for the Lions. And that's saying a lot because he's had some impressive streaks in the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, even Campbell said he saved him a couple times. Where Campbell must have wanted to call something, and Golf said, no, we're not running that thing. We're running this. That's when things are right. That's when things are right with a team.
Yeah, and one of the things that helped make it right was 5 of 10 for third downs,
Yes.
and 2 of them that went to fourth down, they picked up on fourth down, and the other 3 went for field goals.
Yeah.
So they never punted. And when they had the third and medium or whatever, James, they took care of it. They got it done.
Yeah. When you got the 5 for 10 and then the 2 for 2 on fourth, you're essentially 7 of 10 on third down.
And the others resulted in scores still.
Yeah, the others were field goals. So you didn't have negative plays on third down. You had Goff doing it. The one thing that I think Goff has really been good at this season is when there's not a play to be had of just throwing the ball at somebody's feet and moving on to the next play. Not even trying to force a throw, not doing any of that. Just finding a running back that's blocking for you and throwing it at his feet so there's no chance that there's a turnover and move on to the next play.
And coach, they didn't do the run and shoot, but they went 5 wide. I mean, you can't spread it out more than that. And I know Goff's not a running threat at that point, but who are you going to cover when you got 5 guys out there? If they're throwing it as quickly as you said they're throwing it, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of it too, you guys, and I'm going to talk about JMO's routes. We talked about this against the Vikings with that split safeties. I said, well, why are we not working? I think I've called the dig route 3 weeks in a row. I think twice I said JMO's going to have a big splash play on the dig route for a touchdown, or that in cut or that mesh route on the inside. And And when you spread them out like that, that puts those guys in a bind. When we're in the tighter formations and stuff like that, it it hurts us a little bit, and I just think the play design on that was huge because you give JMO all that spacing. The one they ran a fade. I think it might have been Laporta came in the middle. He came on that. They just widened the corner and widened the safety, or got the safety in depth, and now that dude can run. So, and then I'm gonna, one other play talk about the early play to the first play, basically a little screen, little flare pass to Saint. How many times has Saint stayed in and blocked on the backside, and he sold that hook, line, and sinker. You're talking about a wide receiver that sits in there and blocks the freaking DN, for a 2 count, and then he sprints out on the boot and catches the pass. So just the designs were great, and again, we're going to go back. It looked like Lions football.
Yeah, and St. Brown 5 catches. JMO had his best game of the season, arguably 6 for 119 and a touchdown. Sam Laporta got 5 as well. But what I like is Khalif Raymond had 4 catches. Jah Gibbs had 3. Tesla had 1. Monty had 1. You saw other people being able to get used because they've got so much talent and ability, James, that you're not fully maximizing your offense if you're not using those guys. And we've been saying it for a while, man. I mean, you got to get JMO the ball a little bit more, but it's not just him. It's whoever's occupying that third receiver spot as well.
Yeah, they used Khalif a lot more and a lot more effectively. They had that one play after they went to St. Brown on that deep play. He couldn't get all the turf out of his face mask quick enough, so he had to come out for a play, and they just dialed one up for JMO instead, and that ended up going for a pretty decent chunk play there. That third drive when they really kind of, I think the Commanders really started getting frustrated, I guess. They got those penalties after the score and everything like that. But so they went to a screen to Khalif for 8. Gibbs ran for the first down after that. Gibbs ran for 24. They had another screen to Gibbs, and then Goff to wide open Khalif for a first down. They were hammering him on the short plays, kind of, and just running down the field on them on that drive. And then, that makes it 22-3. And then they get frustrated enough that Daron Payne throws a punch at Amon-Ra St. Brown after the touchdown and gets ejected from the game. And Kinlaw was flagged in there too, I think, because he bumped into a ref arguing about Payne getting ejected or something. I don't know what, but you could just really sense the frustration with the Commanders players coming up there. They got 2 post-touchdown penalties during this game, and we'll come back to that a little bit during the special teams part.
Yeah, and that goes right into the Lions cutting down on penalties, like the complete opposite, Coach. We saw a more disciplined team here out of the Lions, not, shooting themselves in the foot.
Right. 3. I think we had 3. Do we have 3 total penalties?
For like 1 yard or something?
Yeah,
it was kind of a weird stat.
And then two of them were kicked out of bounds, going back to what James was just.
Oh, that's why. Yep. And the other was a pass interference penalty on Rock Ya-Sin.
Which, when we talk about special teams, those are great kicks.
Yeah. They use the rule really well.
Using the rules to your advantage.
Yes, they did.
I was confused, but I was like, why are you doing this? And then I was like, actually, that's pretty smart.
It's pretty smart. Yeah, it's weird. That's why they make the big money and we're doing a podcast.
There we go. All right. Anything else you want to talk about that you liked before we get into concerns?
I think one, again, we didn't touch on JMO, but I've never seen a guy so wide open on comeback routes as JMO is, because they're so worried about him going deep. And that dude, guys, and you guys know, we talked about it, the shorter route to him, the comeback route, but just his ability, and he's done it 2 weeks in a row, maybe 3 weeks in a row, when he catches it and he gets a spin out and gets that extra 3 or 4 yards, whether he's going down on the ground, and stuff like that. I know he's going to be mad at himself for dropping the one ball, as well as Saint will be too, but just that you're starting to really see his game go to the next level and why he got paid what he got paid. And I'm looking forward to it, because it's the sky's the limit for that kid.
It is. And if he catches that ball, Kyle Allen's rating's much higher, and they might actually go down and score on that drive with backups in. And just hitting on the other thing about Khalif Raymond and Isaac Tesla getting catches, what that does is that forces defenses to actually play a little tighter on those guys, which then could also leave St. Brown or JMO open for just another second that can make all the difference in the world. We spent a lot of time on offense. We got to kind of talk about Jack Campbell, though, before we leave things we liked, because, man, was that a stop at the goal line or what, James? I mean, this guy just elevates all year.
Oh yeah, that tackle on Krosky Merritt,
Yeah.
that one was great. I mean, just grabbed him high up about at the shoulders and was just like, "We're not. Your momentum is stopped, and you're not going any farther." And then just dragged him back. So that was a great tackle there.
Yeah.
Coach, you got anything you want to add on Campbell or anything on the defense before we
Well,
kind of transition?
Branch, Lopez. I mean, Lopez played a whale of a game, you guys.
Yeah, he did.
I
Yeah.
mean, he was just pressing that pot. When you take an offense lineman back and you basically throw him in with one arm to the running back and the running back trips over him, you're doing something right. That was Lopez, yes. And I thought he played a great game. I thought his pressures were good. They were saying McNeil was down a little bit, didn't make some splash plays, got beat at, whatever. It's the NFL. Guys are going to get beat, but just Lopez and Branch and TA's tackling was better. Of course, he knocked himself out. But there was,
Good.
Rock comes in. Again, Millette had another big freaking knockdown. I mean, they just keep stacking those, and there's always so many of those guys. But that linebacking core is unbelievable. Barnes was quiet, it seemed like, but I'm sure he graded well with the Lions, and that's all that matters. We'll hear, Shep will bring that out, and he'll throw him right under the bus if he doesn't think they didn't play well. And but just so those guys, Branch had that. I think he's been watching Hutch too much. He did the spin move, so that was good stuff.
Well, another thing we do like is Roaster Jack Coffee Company supporting our show. You can order fresh roast offer coffee at roasterjack.com. Use the code Lions. You get 20% off your order. All right. We got to talk special teams. Is it correct to say it's becoming a liability with the other opposing team return game and our point after attempt being blocked, like after a field goal last week? James, what are some of your thoughts? And then I know Coach has some stuff to weigh in too.
Yeah, Jake Bates had to make a tackle to save a touchdown for the second week in a row. So that's not good. Yeah, they've just been giving up big plays on special teams. Vaki coming back helped a little bit. He had a pretty decent return there to set him up in the 30s, I think, to start on the one drive. But the special teams is a worry. Maybe Dan Campbell starts taking over that too. Because he doesn't have enough things on his plate. But it is definitely a concern. We've seen these big gains on kickoff returns, especially the punt return seems to be fine. But it's kick return that seems to be really gashing the Lions. And then those, the field goal and penalty and PAT units having two kicks blocked already this season is completely concerning. So they do have some things that they have to tighten up there, but also they've had kind of a rotating crew of who's been on special teams because of guys that they've needed to insert into the starting lineup because of injuries and just kind of churning the bottom of the roster and guys getting hurt. So it has been kind of a mishmash of people playing special teams and not consistently the same guys. So if maybe they can get a little bit more luck there and have the same guys on the field for a while, maybe it tightens up on its own.
Well, and we've seen more blocks around the league in general this year, it seems. Just the eyeball test. I haven't looked at the stats. But, James, we all alluded to the Lions being creative on kicking the ball out of bounds after those penalties. Can you explain the rule to the listeners who might be like, well, why did it happen the way it did?
Yeah, the rule is that if you kick the ball out of bounds on the kickoff, it's a penalty, but it's based on where you're kicking from. And because the Lions had accepted a personal foul on those the PATs and touchdowns after or before that, they were kicking from the 50, not from the 35. So you're basically moving the ball up or taking the penalty from the 50 instead of from the 35. So that's why you started at the 25 on that out of bounds penalty.
Instead of the 40, which is what people thought was going to happen, but the penalty still applied. It wasn't like
instead of the 40. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the 15-yard personal foul that Kinlaw got the one time, and I can't remember who got the other one for them, is essentially what makes it so that you can just kick the ball out of bounds and they get the ball at the 25, and you don't have to worry about getting up a long kick return, which like we said, has been a problem. So then the Lions did
Yes.
it twice.
Yeah, they did it twice. So, Coach, how do we fix this kick return game, or what insights do you have on the special teams that James and I were just talking about?
Well, that's the first thing I did this morning is I broke down the kickoff team to see what's going on. That's one of the things I did at Saginaw Valley Analytics for that. And OSN, ISN, OH, what are all those outside numbers, inside numbers, outside hash, close to the boundary, 5 yard? I mean, those are all kick points that a team will go after and try to kick the ball. Hey, we want you kicking it 1 yard outside the numbers. Okay, so that's outside the numbers. That's close. Could be just outside the numbers, or could be outside the numbers, closely out of bounds. Okay, so that's kind of there's a ton of those, and they started changing their kickoffs off. So I want to go back to the first kickoff. So the kick was kicked to the 2 yard line, and it was at the hash mark. Okay, it was at the right hash mark. The kickoff team left hash mark. They ran across that. What they did is Trevor's looks like Trevor Nowaski's, him and Stewart are crossing on that hash where the ball is landing. Okay, does that make sense? So
Yeah.
Trevor comes down the hash, which is probably his responsibility. They triple wedge him. Okay, they triple wedge him, and they end up pinning. I took a picture of it, I was going to send to you guys. They end up pinning 7 guys to the left of the hash mark. Okay, the defense from
Yep.
where we kick the hash mark to their side. So what he does is he works the hash mark. He's got a 2 go. He can either run boundary side, which is to the side he was on, or he can take it all the way across the field. Well, because there were so many people pinned in that triple team on Trevor, the alley was huge, and it left Whiteside, and Whiteside was in a freaking no man's land because there's so much area to cover. Okay, does that make
Yep.
sense? So it was a good scheme. They didn't squeeze hard enough on one of them. Maybe the kick was supposed to be closer to the numbers. Okay, you guys following me? Maybe the
Yep.
kick was supposed to be at the goal line and not at the 2 yard line. Does that 2 yards make a big difference? Does the width of the kick make a big difference? Huge. All correctable. Okay. So
Okay.
now the Lions corrected it. Okay. So then they started going to 2 yards to the hash the next time. The return came back. It was like to the 27-yard line. Then they kicked the best one, and I can go through all the kicks, but the best one was they kicked it outside the numbers, close to the sidelines, and I think that ball landed on the 4 yard line, outside the numbers, close to the sidelines. So it was like in that corner, and that's where he ran across the field, and we ended up tackling him at the 21-yard line. And then there was another one where he created a penalty because the kick was placed perfect and the cover team was placed perfect. The NFL average is 29.4 yards. Even with that big return, they were right around that 29, right around that 30-yard return average. So all those are all correctable. I mean, I can go through and draw
Okay.
it. Maybe I'll
Good.
throw a couple of those online, but it's kind of cool. And that, I went to it immediately, and those are, and again, when they say things are correctable, and the coverage was way better than last week, and the kicking game was way better than last week. We just had that one outlier with the big return. So that's one of the things. I think Flip will be pleased with it, but not happy with it.
All right. And then point after attempt being blocked. Was this a one-off thing again? Was it a true?
And I pulled this up. Skipper, and I love Skipper death. He's getting killed on extra point and field goal. Killed, run over, killed. And again, when you're 6'7", and those guys are in a 4-point, and they're coming and they're underneath his pads, and they're throwing him back, he gets tossed back on I think 4 of them. And
Okay.
the missed extra point, the block looked like a low kick, and I think Bates has just got something going on with Bates. I think and again, I worked at special teams. I don't know what they're coaching him, but it looks like his approach to the thing, he's a little bit forward, and his foot's hitting. Just like last week, his foot hit before it got to the ball. So the trajectory was low, and I think it was the same thing on this one. So again, I think those are all correctable things. 1 week we lost the game. Next week we won one. Next week we're going to be perfect. That's all that matters.
All right. Thanks for that breakdown of special
Yeah.
teams, man. That was very insightful and encouraging as well.
Yeah.
James, something else that you found concerning or didn't care for?
Outside of Roy Lopez, the defensive line was pretty nondescript in this game. Not really generating a whole lot of pressure. The run defense as a whole was good, but I think a lot of it was the linebackers. I think Barnes was pretty
Yeah.
good in the run game. Anzalone made some nice plays. Campbell was all over, but the defensive line just didn't really move the needle a lot. It seemed like.
Yeah. Yep. From, again, I watched it live and it did seem like the linebackers were pretty busy and pretty active. And so I don't know if there was a scheme plan on this and or whatnot, or they just weren't getting through. But yeah,
It could have just been that they were playing maybe a little bit more conservative because they knew what they were facing, and that they were in the lead. So they're like, let's just not give up a big play, stay in our alleys, hold the gaps, and let the linebackers make the plays.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt the same way too, especially late. It got to a point where I was watching it going, man, we're pretty vanilla here. And, and seriously, and we've done, and
yeah,
again, from my coaching days, we've done it before where this team can't score on us, you don't want to say that, but they're hurting, and let's see if we can stop this with this. Let's
yeah,
see. And I've done that. I ran a three front against a T team, and people are like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're going to beat them." And after we got the lead, of course, I'm not being that cocky, but
yeah,
you had and that maybe Shep was working on some things. I mean, that Hutch was pretty wide. He had a lot of ghost nine alignments, and it looked like a three down lineman. We didn't see the two backs in the middle as much, and so I think they're working on things, and I'm not overly concerned because those guys that think or get graded bad this week are going to play 10 times better next week because that's how we're built.
for sure. One thing we all did not like, and you noticed it more than I did. I didn't know how the info is. Terry Arnold entered concussion protocol, and so coach, you raving about him being out there when he was out there making those plays, being the difference maker that he's really developed into, even if that label hasn't caught on yet. But that that that's an issue.
Oh, it is. And Shep brought it up and called him out in his press conference about, yeah, his coverage is great, but he can't tackle anybody. I don't know if those were the exact words. Well, he's got to improve on his tackling. Well, he looked good in the first half. He knifed under that one. I can't remember if it was a screenplay. Just made a great tackle. So I think he listened to what Shep's doing, and hopefully it's not hopefully it's a one of those ones where he might have a concussion. Let's hold him out in the second half. Again, we haven't heard anything. But we probably will in the press conference. And once you're in that concussion protocol, well, you know how that goes. So different people react different ways to that head injury. So wish him the best, praying that he's healthy and ready to go next week.
Yeah, I think the term that Shepard used was unacceptable
That's what it was.
for
Thank you.
for his run defense. But his pass defense, and I know people have been ripping him, and even
Yeah.
on some of the message boards I've seen, people have been saying, "Do we bench Terran Arnold?" I'm like, no. Since week four, not counting this game, but I don't think this game was going to be too far off of that. But since week four of the season, he has the second best QBR
Yeah.
when he's targeted in the NFL.
Mhm.
A quarterback rating of 38.1, I think it is, which is
Wow.
incredibly low. And that's just when they throw it at his receiver. So his coverage, for the most part, has been very good. Despite what people see because of an occasional penalty flag or something.
Yeah.
Um, so that's great. The thing that I was happy with is that Arnold's concussion is the only thing from that game, really. Glasgow left for a little bit, or left, and I don't know that he even came back. But it looked like he was trying to talk his way back on the sidelines. And Sewell left for a little while and came back. But I was going to talk about this during the pregame or the preview show, but I didn't kind of want to jinx anything. In that the northeast corner of the Commanders Stadium is a graveyard of major injuries in the NFL.
Oh,
Ooh.
Uh, It's where Alex Smith broke his leg.
Oh, that's right.
It's
Oh,
where Ryan Fitzpatrick broke his hip. It's where Joe Burrow tore his ACL. It's where Adrian Peterson tore his ACL. It's where Jaden Daniels got hurt last week. It's where RG3 tore his ACL. It's where Chase Young tore his ACL. It's where Kyle Allen broke his ankle when he played for the Commanders. Uh,
thank you for
completely
not mentioning that on
Yeah.
the
broke his
last show. I
ankle.
appreciate that.
It's also the end where Gus Frerotte gave himself a concussion when he headbutted the wall,
I remember him running into that wall.
and the corner where Jalen Hurts nearly got crushed when the rail came off when he
Oh
was exiting the
yeah.
field.
Mhm.
Wow.
All of that's that same end of the corner. It's like, ironically, it's the northeast field corner of Northwest Stadium.
Well, what's in a
And
name, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
All right, well, guys, it's that time. Let's hit up our play of the game. What was your play of the game, Coach? What do you got?
I'm going to go with the JMO dig route across the middle for the touchdown. I just, other than him flipping, of course, as soon as he started, I'm like, no, because I'm just worried about him blowing an ankle. There, and again, that one, because the reason I like it so much to play the game, because I know they're going to interview about him, and I love watching his interviews. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the kid. He's a kid in a candy store, you guys. He's a little
mhm.
kid. I mean, I know he's an adult, but he's a kid, and he just loves being with the boys. He just loves playing the game, and I just, yeah, that play just ignited me.
Awesome. James, how about you? What did you choose?
I think it was Dan Campbell putting on the glasses and holding the oversized Applebee's menu.
Yeah,
Oh, I see. I see that. I see that. You circled all the way around back to that.
yeah, it was
Hmm.
good.
Nice. I decided to I kind of went back and forth what I liked, and after Washington scored a touchdown, it made it 41-22. And what did the Lions do? They put all the backups in.
Yeah.
I was like, Kyle Allen's in the football game approximately halfway through the fourth quarter, just a little bit beyond that. And I'm like, man, that tells you that we got this game and we're giving some other people some reps. And so my play of the game was Kyle Allen coming in, because how many times did we not see the backup quarterback come in when we had a game well in hand? And I like seeing that.
Mhm.
So. All right. Well, major storylines. One we're going to be watching is Dan Campbell calling the plays going forward. He'll be asked about that later on Monday, and I'm sure there'll be discussions on it throughout the week. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. The offensive line, they talked about the shuffle. There ultimately wasn't a shuffle, which I think we all kind of thought was going to be the case, that there would not be one, that Coyote would be the fit based on what they said, but we were glad they were looking into it. Some guys got some reps, some guys got some playing time. So that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on going forward. James, storyline you want to touch on?
I just think that the offensive line, especially in the run game, looked 1,000% more confident.
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
the Commanders got called for a penalty on the extra point that one time, and the Lions were just like, okay, we're just going to go for it. That hadn't been something we'd really seen before this season. And they ran it in with Monty, and then it was 22-3. So now you're making it a 3+ score almost game, and also that's just kind of it's a confidence booster for the Lions, and it's got to be a deflator for the Commanders,
Mhm.
to just give up a play like that. So the offensive line play, I think, was just uh, a major thing, and that's what's been the main concern, I think, with this line, or this offense. The first half of the season was the O line, and if they can look half of what they looked like this week, I think things are looking really good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Offensive line blocking, but also blocking on the offense in general has been an issue. Coach James said it though. The offensive line played great.
Mhm.
How do you change so dramatically from one week to the next?
I mean, I think they felt good about Coyote coming in there. First of all, I think we simplified. I don't want to say simplified, but we said this is what we're going to do. We're going to run. We're coming downhill at you. We're going to go 12 personnel. We're going to bring in Skip. We're going to spread you out. We're going to do different things like that. I think the communication was better, and it comes down to the practices and who's calling plays and coordinators and things like that. And I just think that things got tightened up, and they knew exactly what to expect in this game, what they were going to hang their hats on. And I think that's how it cleaned up so well. You see it week in and week out in the NFL with different teams doing the same thing. But I think that, I remember those Monday days, or Sundays, after losing a game and going, we're not doing this anymore. We're running this. This is our best play, and we will feed off of that. And that's what the Lions did. And the play calling was phenomenal with the packages flying in and out, new bodies coming in. When you got, and again, I'm gonna bring that up real quick. When you're shipping guys in and out like that, there's a guy on the sidelines holding up a card, or there's a guy in the sidelines yelling 11 personnel, or a guy in the sidelines 12. And if you got a team that has to match you, that's why they're holding it up, then you're running. You can't figure out what the Lions are doing, and they were off schedule on what they normally do on schedule. And I think if you guys understand what I mean by that,
Yep.
they just had you guessing, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And kudos to the coaching staff.
All right, well, let's move over to final thoughts. I do want to share being at the game. I got to avoid the early Michigan winter that arrived, and I did get to wear shorts at one point over the weekend because it was upper 60s over there. But at the game itself, amazing weather. Air Force One flew over the stadium. Did they show that on TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, it came from behind me, but that airplane was so low, and if they hadn't put it on the jumbotron, I wouldn't be able to get my camera out to even get a part of a photo of it. But that was a very unique experience, and Secret Service was actually working the security to enter the stadium, and surprisingly, there were not long lines. We went in 45 minutes before kickoff, and everything got through very easily. Actually, it was they must just have a lot of entrances at that stadium because they've got a huge parking lot around it. I think old Silverdome type situation where it's a big open area like that. But that was interesting, kind of just game atmosphere. But here's the big final thought as we're gonna be looking forward is Washington's a decent team with a number of injuries. But 4 out of the 5 next games for the Lions are against teams with winning records. So I think this game was huge to figure some things out and kind of put some confidence, James, on the team after figuring some things out.
Yeah, it was definitely a get-right game for the Lions. And with Dan taking over play calling duties, I'm going to assume for the rest of the season, the Eagles have a lot to prepare for, and they only have one game of tape to do it with. So any early prep work that they did on the Lions offense, they pretty much have to throw out the window.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah. Coach, any final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
No, just love the Lions, how they right the ship, and let's see if we can just keep that ship sailing.
Awesome. Coach, James, thank you guys for all the insights. Thank you to Roaster Jack Coffee. They roast incredible beans since 1999. If you visit roasterjack.com, you use the code LIONS, you will get 20% off your coffee order. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. You can find more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. Tell your friends and family about the show, and until next time, stay gritty, my friends.